Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Hoven of Ramos Law and your host for Health Matters. Today, I want to talk to you about bones, specifically what happens when you break one, where you should go, what you should do, and how your bone heals. Stay tuned, it's happening right now. Our body's made up of lots and lots of bones. Some of them very small, like those in your feet and in your toes and in your fingers. Some of them very big, like in your arms and in your legs, in your pelvis. No matter what size of bone, all of them are susceptible to fracture under certain types of conditions. Now here's the thing about fractures. There's several different types, and without going into an anatomy and a pathology class, just keep this in mind. Fractures can come in the form of minute fractures where you feel more pain than you actually see, especially at the beginning, right after the trauma, or they can come in massive situations where the two pieces of bone aren't even touching each other anymore. They break and then they're totally apart. And they can happen everywhere in the middle. Fractures can take different shapes. They can be spiral or they can be jagged. And all of these things determine on what the best treatment is and how to take care of them. So, in the case of fractures, let's give you an example of a very common fracture that happens to the foot in your heel. So someone maybe jumps off a truck, and I've done this before, and it is horribly painful. Jump off a truck and you get a stress fracture, it's called, in your heel, or you keep walking on a damaged heel and eventually that bone just gets a little stress fracture and it creates lots and lots of pain. Those types of fractures, one of the best things that you have to do, like you really don't have a choice if you want it to heal, is rest. Getting pressure off of that joint, especially if it's in your foot. If you're taking all these steps on, it causes a problem, and that makes sense. Imagine 10 to 12,000 steps a day on a slight fracture. If we don't take care of that, that fracture can start to open up and become more severe and significant. So getting off of that is important, and you can use that using a walking boot and all these kinds of things. So there's lots of different ways to remove the pressure, crutches and all kinds of other stuff. But if we take another type of fracture, where now the fracture is jagged across, but the bone is still in alignment, in that point, we're gonna get your body casted. So let's say you have a fracture of an arm and one of your arm bones, and your arm bone is still together, there's just a crack through it, then you're gonna cast that and let the body heal up. And here's the cool thing. When the body senses that there's been a break in a bone, then it's going to lay down new bone called osteoclasts and osteoblasts that work together to tear out all the old junk that's in there, the damaged stuff, and lay down new bone, but it takes time. So by us putting that arm in a cast and you getting your arm casted, that allows you from putting a lot of movement into it that would stress that fracture point and delay the healing. So that's important that we get the pressure off of that kind of a fracture. And of course, there's a fracture that if it completely blows a bone in half, in those cases, the orthopedist will come in, they'll put the bone together, and then they'll put metal on each side of it and they'll fuse that with some sort of a metal brace or something that will put that together. Now, that's on all of our appendages, our arms and legs, but when you have fractures of the spine, a lot of the same stuff holds true, only some of the rods can be different, some of the rest can be different. You can have to put people in a neck brace in order to keep them from moving. Sometimes they even have to put halos around with screws in to hold things together. So fractures are nothing to mess around with. So if you've been in a trauma and you hit your head on something, you would want to check for neck. If you hit your elbow and it's just, you got a lot of swelling, a lot of pain, a lot of sharp pain, very little movement, that's a sign that you need to go get that checked out for a fracture. And it might not even be a fracture, but you want to know. So the imaging for fracture, first you'll find that they'll take an x-ray to see if they can see it. Otherwise, you'll look at a CT scan that would look at the bone in a different way. So they're both looking at the same bone, just from two different technologies to see how bad the fracture is and where all it's located. So fractures are something that we don't mess around with, but it's something that you definitely want to make sure that are treated correctly with the right fashion in the right timing. So if you have questions about fractures, make sure you see your doctor. You can also send me an email and I'll do what I can to help you or refer you out. My email is jim@ramoslaw.com. And if there's a fracture question or something else that you would like to have us talk about, please just let me know. And in the meantime, I hope you're having a great day and that you're remembering your health matters.